Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and it's time for my first impressions of these two knives. It's rare that I lump knives together, but these are the same knife, just with different blade shapes. These are the new AD20.5 from Demko Knives, and this is the first Demko Knives production knife, unless I guess you count like his MG knives as production knives, or if you count like Cold Steel's knives as his knives. I wouldn't for either of those. I'd say these are his first production knives. So I want to start by saying thank you again to John and Andrew Demko. John's the one I've been communicating with, and he's the person that I talked to about getting these, and he sent me these early to check out and review and share on the channel. So the reason why I have two are that there are two blade shapes, but Demko Knives sent me both of these to check out. And so I want to say thank you to them, obviously, and I will link them down below. So you can check out Demko Knives both on Instagram and their website and the YouTube channel and all that stuff. So yeah, I have a Demko AD20. That's my first Demko knife that I've ever owned. I may at some point have had, a long time ago, a Cold Steel that was Demko designed, but I don't think so. And then, yeah, I haven't had like an AD10 or an AD15. Those are the other models that I'm aware of within Demko's internal lineup. But the AD20 has made an impression on me. It's one of my favorite knives to use, especially outdoors. It is just a bruiser. It's a beast, and it's fun. It's exciting to fidget with. It looks cool, it feels cool, it makes fun sounds. It is an awesome knife by its own merit. So when Demko announced these, that they were doing these smaller versions basically of the AD20. It's the 20.5. It's thinner, smaller overall. It's a miniaturized version of the AD20. But they were doing it as a production knife. I got especially excited. There were a couple of things that I wasn't crazy about right off the bat when I saw the specs, however, and so we'll speak to those a little bit. This is just my first impressions. I'll go deeper on the full review. But my AD20 has G10 scales and CPM 3V blade steel. You can also get that knife in 20CV blade steel, I've seen them do, and I believe I've seen them do crew wear as well. So good steel choices, premium steels in right now's market. And G10 is fine. G10 isn't necessarily super exciting to me, but I actually like G10 when it's done well, like it is on the AD20. I think it's a fine handle scale material. They also do them in titanium scales on the AD20. And then I believe now they've actually started to do some in this plastic material, what you see on these. I haven't handled an AD20 in the plastic scale material, but I have handled one in titanium, and I like it, but it's a little unnecessarily heavy for me personally. For a knife that's already so big and heavy, it just kind of takes it a little too far in the weight department. But I would love one of these in titanium. We'll talk about that. Anyway, so in terms of construction, these are pretty different. They're similar in a couple of ways, but the differences are stark. And the things that made me a little bit hesitant at first were plasticky scales. I'm not a big fan of plastic on knives. It just doesn't get me excited. I think at a certain price point, it's tolerable, but these are going to come in at about $150. And so for me, plastic just seemed a little meh, like I would vastly prefer for it to be G10 or carbon or micarta or something cool, but even G10 would be, I think, would have had me like, yes, it's a little AD20, but the plastic, before I had it in hand, I was a little bit nervous about. And then the other thing was the steel choice. These are being done in AUS 10A steel. And AUS 10A, from what I understand, I don't have a ton of experience with it. I know Cold Steel has used it pretty extensively. I think Spyderco back in the day used it a fair bit. From the best info that I've been able to find, I could be off on this. This is just me like peeking around on some forums, trying to see some stuff on it. I think it's pretty similar to VG10 in terms of its level of performance. It's a fairly balanced steel. It's fairly stainless. It's decently tough. It's okay at edge retention, but it's not like a premium steel. Certainly not. I don't think anyone is claiming in 2021 that AUS 10A is a premium steel. But that said, so those were my material hangups, right? AUS 10A steel and plastic scales. So first impressions, because that's what we're doing right now. The plastic, honestly, hasn't really bothered me. The way that it's checkered, like they do their G10, honestly feels quite good to me. And I don't know, it just, like, would I prefer for it to be a nicer material? Of course. But in actual, like, carry and use and just handling of these knives, like if I'm blindfolded, I don't know, it just doesn't bother me. Again, I'd prefer for it to be nicer, but it's not a deal breaker at all as I'm carrying these knives. And then the steel, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I think if these are successful, which I am positive they will be, because they have the shark lock and they're a great design, I imagine there will probably be other variants in the future. And hopefully then we see some enhanced variants with more premium blade steel offerings and maybe even different handle scale materials as well. But for being a first production offering from a knife company that really is two people from what I understand. Pretty sure it's just Andrew and John Demko over there. They might have more help. I don't know that for sure. But it's basically these two brothers in a shop in Pennsylvania who not only are making really cool knives there in that shop, but they're also designing knives. Like, Andrew has designed so many knives for Cold Steel, and not just the knife design, but new lock types, which isn't that common to see someone come up with a new lock type, especially one that isn't just gimmicky, isn't just for the sake of doing it, making a new lock type. It seems pretty rare to me to see somebody come out with a new lock type like this, where it's actually ingenious and strong and functional and fun. Like, it all, this is weird left-handed, it all comes together to just be one of my favorite lock types that there is now. And so to have it be a first production knife from a very small company who has created this lock type from scratch, this is theirs. And internally it says patent pending, I think, or patent issued, because, yeah, it's got a patent number on it. So I'm assuming that means that the shark lock is now patented, which I love. I love to see that. So, yeah, I mean, the materials are somewhat underwhelming, if I'm being objective. But these knives are just also so freaking exciting to me that they have the shark lock, and that you get the blade shape options now too. So you've got the clip point, which it looks fantastic. This is a miniaturized version of the exact same blade shape that I have on my AD20. But then you also have the shark foot, and I'm assuming they're playing off of sheep's foot, but it's got a shark lock, so that's why they're calling it that. And I love this blade shape. I'm a sucker for Warncliffe type blades in general, where the point is down here. A number of people have asked me already which blade shape do I prefer, since I have both in my possession. And honestly, like, not as a cop-out, I genuinely love both. If I had to only keep one of these, which, that's a frustrating thought process to go down, getting rid of one. If I had to only have one of these in my possession, I think I'd probably keep the shark foot, but that might just be because my AD20 is a clip point. You know, like, if I had a shark foot AD20, I'd probably want the clip point of the 20.5 so that I'd have one of each still. That's kind of another cop-out. But yeah, they're both very functional. They both, in terms of action, feel the same to me. I mean, they're spot on with each other. I'm left-handed challenged over here, which is funny because I'm left-handed for a lot of things, but not for fidgeting with knives. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I'm kind of talking in circles on this one, aren't I? Let's talk about what I've found so far on these knives. I have found that the fidgeting is just as fun as it is on the AD20. The only difference is there's less heft to everything that's happening here. The profile is way thinner. The knife itself is lighter. The blade is much lighter. So it's not quite as like, it doesn't feel like this huge mass is moving when you've got the blade in motion. But the shark lock functions identically. It feels the same. It still makes really cool sounds. I dig the sounds it makes. I dig the way that it works with the thumb studs. I dig that I can middle finger flick it with the hole. I dig that I can just use the lock itself to play with the knife. It works really, really well. And then in terms of like actual carry so far, I've been carrying these as secondaries, which is funny. These could definitely be, either of them could be a primary. Like, they're just big enough that they could be, but they're also slim enough and light enough. And maybe just because they're a miniature version of something that feels big to me, I think of them as smaller than they are. So I've been carrying them as a secondary. Between each of them, I think I've carried the shark foot probably a day and a half, and I've carried the clip point a whole day as well. And they're comfortable back there. I would love for them to be deep carry. I tried a deep carry clip on my AD20 that was aftermarket and didn't like it because it kind of ruined the ergos for me and it stuck up a little too far. This is the whole thing. But these clips function great. They function just like the one on the AD20, and they leave a little knife sticking out of your pocket, which isn't my favorite, but functionally they work really, really well. And so the fact that these are so slim in comparison to the AD20, it just, I love it. They carry really, really well. They're lighter, they're slimmer. Yeah, everything about it so far is really just kind of impressing me. I'll save my in-depth like cutting carry action, and what's my other category? Cutting carry action ergos. I'll save all of that deep dive one by one type of category talk for the full review. But yeah, I guess this first impressions is just kind of a check-in. I'm thrilled with these so far. When I unboxed them, I was crazy excited, and that hasn't worn off. Carrying them and using them, they're just kind of shining through. They're meeting my expectations, which were really, really high. And again, like, the only criticisms I think I can really have for these is maybe the material selection. But in terms of the actual like build quality, the way they're put together, the way the action feels, they're both centered and staying centered. They've come together really, really well. So yeah, I think it's an awesome first production knife. they can hang their hat on this for sure because it came out really, really well. And between the two blade shapes, I think they're going to make a lot of people happy. Yeah, it's great. It's an affordable shark lock. Like, if you want to look at it that way, it is what, a third of the cost of an MG 8020. I guess maybe the ones with plastic scales are like $350. So even then, this is less than half of what those cost. And if you're comparing plastic to plastic, really then it's just a difference of size and blade steel. So this is the affordable way to get a shark lock. And it's a lock type that has a lot of buzz around it. And a lot of people have been wanting to try because the 8020 is really difficult to get. They can't make enough of them for how many people want them right now. And they're trying. I see them making them all the time. But at that little shop in Pennsylvania, they can't crank out enough. So the idea that now there's a production version and that it's not through Cold Steel or something, that it's just all Demko, I love that. They're having them built in Taiwan, I'm assuming, probably in the same source that Cold Steel uses over there because they feel like a similar build and they're using materials that Cold Steel plays with a lot. But I love that these are all Demko, that Demko is doing this and it's from them still. That makes me happy. So I love these knives. I think they're super exciting. They're super fun. You can tell I can't stop clicking them and flicking them while I'm just shooting this right now. It's been nonstop clicking and flicking, and they're great. They're really, really nice. So I'll have a full review soon. We'll go deeper at that point. But yeah, as a first impressions check-in, these are awesome. So I'll try to have my full review up before Blade Show as well, because I think they'll be selling some of these at Blade Show. Don't hold me to that. I don't know for sure, but I think that's what they're planning. So anyway, Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.